I'll tell you a story that was relayed to me that I heard multiple times from several different people. So I think it's true because all the facts remain the same. But there was, in 1971, the CIA hired a Galician from Spain. This dude who essentially, you know, was a you could call him a terrorist, right? He was this mass murderer. And they hired this guy to go to Cuba and to take out all of these guerrillas in this fishing town, these like Cuban guerrillas that I don't know what they were planning, but obviously something against the United States. The CIA got word of it. So this guy, his last name was Villa. He was referred to as Comandante Villa. Comandante Villa comes into this fishing town, and instead of, you know, spending whatever amount of time to figure out who these guerrillas are, he just opened fires on this small fishing town, killing everybody in it. Mass murders the entire town. Wow. Right? The Cubans, Castro's guys, capture him before he can get away, and he's held in, you know, Castro's cells. Right? Very close. This guy's not going anywhere. So the CIA call Manuel Noriega, and they're like, hey, we need you to go to Cuba and get this guy out of jail. And Noriega, from what Carlos told me, was like, how do you want me to do that? Like, this guy murdered like a bunch of innocent civilians in Cuba. Like, Castro's not going to let him get away. And the CIA were basically just like, do it. Convince him, right? Convince him to do it. So Noriega flies to Cuba. He sits down with Castro and they have a conversation. And Castro's like, why are you doing this for the CIA, man? Like, don't you want Panama to be Panama? And Noriega's like, I need to make sure that, like, I'm feeding the white bear, right? So that it doesn't attack me, right? That's the way it was put. So they work out a deal where Noriega can essentially take Comandante Villa out of the cell and send him back to the CIA. And in return, Castro gets information from Noriega about CIA dealings, right? But this is a case of a literal mass murderer being let back into the CIA's hands just because it served a purpose. And this was in 1971. Can you imagine the amount of times something like that has happened? Like, think about like the Middle East, where like I really don't know anything. My knowledge really pertains to Central America and Latin America during the Cold War, during this specific period right up until 1990. But dude, like starting with the Gulf War and extending on to Afghanistan and all this sort of stuff. Like, can you imagine the amount of like deals that are made between intelligence agencies and like Al-Qaeda and people. Whatnot? Evil fucking people, dude, just to serve a greater purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Practicality trumps morals when it comes to intelligence people all day. And that's, you know, when these intelligence agencies vet people to work for them, that's one of the things that they test them for. Like, are you willing to like subvert any ideology or any moral beliefs that you have in order to achieve like the greater purpose of what the objective is of this mission, right? And like there was this guy's John Kiriakou, who's a former CIA officer, who worked in the Middle East, who's a part of capturing a lot of the people that worked for bin Laden. You know, he was explaining to me that one of his agents that he recruited in the Middle East was just like this dude who was always getting prostitutes and like, you know, he always wanted prostitutes, right? So he's like, if you want information from me, you got to you know, bring me a prostitute or whatever. Bring me girls. I need girls or even like men or whatever. Like this guy didn't give a fuck. So he's like, if this is what I have to do to get information, this is what I'll do. Right? John eventually blew the whistle on the CIA's torture program and they sent him to prison. So they fucked up when they picked him. Like this guy was not the right guy, but a normal CIA agent or a Mossad agent or you name the intelligence agency, like even if this guy wanted children, they would get him children as long as it meant getting intelligence on the people that they wanted intelligence on. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like there's no moral. And like, think about it. If you are a small nation that exists in this part of the world surrounded by enemies, there's always an existential threat. And you only have 2 to 3 million people in your population. Are you willing to sacrifice children to ensure the survival of your race and your people and your country into the future. Right?
A lot of these places are going to say yes.
Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, the guy was obviously working for multiple intelligence agencies, doing some of like the most abhorrent things with trafficking children all around the world to all these rich and powerful people. And, you know, I think that it's pretty obvious that it was a blackmail operation. And I think that Israel and the CIA had to have been involved in it. And I think if you're the CIA or if you're the Mossad, you're saying like, is it a reasonable thing? Not like tinfoil hat. Like, is this a reasonable idea that this guy would be trafficking underage kids to these rich and powerful people to get blackmail on them so you can control them and so that you can ensure the survival of your country and your race? Like, I think that's a totally reasonable thing to suggest.
Yeah. Well,
you know?
If it looks like a duck and walks like a duck, then it's probably a duck.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, totally.
That's what people say. But
yeah.
I also think that people are a lot smarter than they give themselves credit for, right? Like, I think the mass. I'm stealing this from a movie, but like, a person is smart, people are stupid, right? The masses, they follow trends, they follow narratives. You know, the news is all about narrative, but I think an individual person can feel it in their gut when something isn't right. So you talk about Epstein and like all this stuff, like, you know, like, you feel it in your gut that something's up, right? You don't know the facts. You don't, like, you can't look behind those closed doors, but like, something stinks, right?
Yeah.
Something smells there. But you, like, we'll never truly know. You know what I mean? Like,
no.
There are too many powers at play. And then, you know, you have like, and then like, there are tiers to intelligence, right? There are things that we're supposed to know and things that we're not supposed to know, and then things that get washed away over the course of history. You know, there are things like I talk about like having these confidential documents that show this correspondence between Noriega and the DEA and DOJ and CIA and all these different agencies. Like, what was said that wasn't documented? That's what I've always wanted to know. So that's when I go to Panama, when I meet all of these people who are in these rooms and I'm working off pure testimony. Like, there are two sides to every story, or rather there are multiple sides to every story. But for instance, I hear somebody be like, oh yeah, in 1976, George H.W. Bush, you know, tells Noriega that he gets pissed off at Noriega in a meeting and he says, you're going to regret that, right? That's what this guy tells me. And then I think about that and I'm like, you know, I could see that happening. I was like, I know for a fact that they butted heads. I know for a fact that they fucking hated each other. It's like, I could see the director of the CIA making a threat to an intelligence asset who thought he was more important than he actually was. And then when that intelligence asset continues to do things that he's not supposed to do, the director of the CIA or former director of the CIA putting his foot down and being like, you're going to pay for that. Right. Just for that, I'm going to invade your country with 27,000 troops and bomb the shit out of your civilians.
Right.
And then not only am I going to do that, but we're going to say that 300 people died when in fact we don't know how many people died. Thousands. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, there's this great documentary called The Panama Deception. It won the best documentary at the Oscars in 1993. This woman, Barbara Trent, wrote it. Fantastic documentary.
Panama Deception?
Yeah, The Panama Deception. And 1993 Oscars, maybe 92. But, you know, she got in trouble for it and whatever. But in the documentary, the claim is made that the U.S. military used their military exercise of the invasion of Panama as a chance to, yeah, exactly, this is the documentary here, 92. They use it as a chance to test weapons on Panamanian civilians. So I interviewed a lot of people and soldiers who claimed that they saw these like the U.S. Army shooting lasers at Panamanian soldiers, and that like their guns like melted to their body when they got like hit with these lasers, dude. And this is in like 1989. Like, there's a lot of funky shit out there that there are testimonies of, but documentation will never exist. So who's like, will we ever know the truth? Like, truly, we can talk about it, and our guts can tell us that something is fishy, and if there's smoke, there's fire, and all this sort of shit. But will we ever have documentation? Will we ever have like actual, real, true proof? Like,
no, I'm sure.
I doubt it.
I'm sure the most sinister shit that the government has done, I'm sure they make it. They make it a point to make sure none of that shit is documented.
Yeah.
Or ever talked about, and people go to their graves with that stuff.